stage. Hey, Robin. Good afternoon. Good to see
you. Hey, Mela, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Very good.
I love your background. Is that in nearby, or is that?
Yes, it's not far away. It's not today, however. It's. I was just saying it was sunny a minute ago, but now it's raining. But that's what happens in Scotland, unfortunately.
Well, in the Netherlands normally as well. I have this beautiful sunshine again today. So, do you have it in Scotland that you really enjoy the sun when it's there?
I enjoy all the different weather. You know, I don't mind. Yeah, I'll go out in the rain quite happily. You know, I live in a very beautiful part of Scotland, so I'm lucky from that point of view. But sometimes you make your own luck as well. You know, you go out in the rain and 5 minutes later it's sunny.
Yeah.
There's a famous comedian, I don't know if you've heard of Billy Connolly. Have you heard of Billy Connolly? He once said famously that if you don't like the weather in Scotland, don't worry, just wait 5 minutes. It'll be completely different. So yeah, I like outdoors, any weather.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. So today I want to get to know more about you, because we have been working together for a while now, which I really, really enjoy. And I do get to know you while we're working together, but now I wanted to focus on you. So could you tell us something about your story, where you come from?
Yeah, well, when you're as old as I am, it's a long story, so I'll try and keep it. Yeah, you'll love to hear my long story, only if I keep it short and interesting, right?
I always love long stories, because there's always, first of all, I don't think you're that old. I hear you say it often, and I'm like, you're not. You feel ancient apparently, but I don't see you like that.
I think I'm just at one of those watershed ages, and I think I feel like a teenager inside. So that's
Good.
It's when you see yourself in a mirror or in a Zoom screen, you think, oh my goodness, who is that?
What happened?
What happened? My wife and I, in a few months, will be celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
And it's like, where did that go? So yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? But yeah, so I live in Scotland. I live in a tiny Scottish island, so it's one of the things that makes me slightly different from a lot of other online people. I don't live in a big city. I don't have thousands of people around me. I'm not, a network marketer, or I'm not, just like yourself, Willemijn, or well, call you Mela for easiness. We don't subscribe to that model of doing business, which is just as well for me, because there are more sheep where I live than there are people. And that's the truth. So
they're hard to subscribe, right?
Yeah, you can't. They don't opt into my email list too readily. But I have lived all over the place. I'm not a country bumpkin with straw behind my ears. I mean, I do love here, and I've been here a long time. But I've lived in big cities. I've worked in London. I've worked in Madrid. I've spent a couple of years in America, mostly in California, in San Francisco, again mostly. But I've been around, done lots of different things, and enjoyed life to the full. Had my disasters, had my successes, but it all brought me back.
What does it mean to you to live your life to the fullest?
Well, I think follow your heart. I don't always make the right decisions, but I've nearly always followed my heart, or maybe even that famous gut instinct that we talk about. If something feels right, I'll do it. I always take people at face value as well. I don't listen to what other people say about people. So I tend to, trust people and follow people if I have a good feeling about them and situations. I've got myself into all kinds of scrapes, and my wife calls me Mr. Serendipity, which is a fancy word for saying I've been quite lucky at times in situations. So yes, I've when I was a student, I was sitting in a bar in Aberdeen, at the university in Aberdeen, with a bunch of friends, And you know what it's like, a bunch of guys sit around a couple of beers and they start, being, full of bravado and, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. And I would love to go to America, I remember saying, and I'd never been anywhere on my own, really, without my mummy and my daddy, really. I'd been camping in Scotland and things like that on my own or with friends, but I'd never been abroad on my own. So we were, doing this bravado thing. And this, Aberdeen, I was a student, so a poor student, but is also at that time, particularly in the 80s, was full of wealthy American oil people. It was the oil capital of Europe, really.
Yeah.
So this guy shuffled over and he said, "Hey guys, so you want to go to America?" And we went, okay. So he said, "Well, how would you like to go and drive an ice cream truck this summer as a student?" And we went, "Oh, okay, have another beer. Yeah, why not have another beer? Okay, where do we sign?" And in the end, I was the only one who went. All my friends chickened out. So there I was, 21 years old. We're about to get on a plane in London to fly to New York on my own. And frankly, I was terrified. And I arrived in New York and I spent a night in a youth hostel, the famous YMCA.
Been there. Thing. Yeah.
It's quite a scary place.
Yeah, it is.
It's not like the song.
No, not at all.
And, there's people banging on my door at 3 o'clock in the morning, offering me all kinds of services. And I just couldn't wait to get out of the place. And then I had to spend 3 days on a bus to get to Kansas City, right in the middle of America.
Wow.
Where the people get more and more stupid until you get to the middle. And that's where I was. And I drove an ice cream truck, on the wrong side of the road.
Oh, yes, of course, for you.
for a whole summer. And, it was the making of me. It turned me from being a lazy student to somebody who knew how to work hard for a living.
Wow.
I'd done, jobs at school and things like that, bicycle delivering papers. But this was 7 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night.
Wow.
I worked for 10 weeks solid, and I had 3 days off in 10 weeks.
Wow. That's the American dream, right?
That's the American dream, but I made a lot of money, for me.
Of course, yeah.
And I was the top salesman for this ice cream company, and they wanted me to stay. And really it changed my way of thinking about things. I'm not saying I'm in favor of working that long, that hard, but it turned me around, and I came back and finished my studies, and then I went and did a postgraduate course in business, and I went to work in London, and I had a great job in London and was bored to tears and hated every minute of it.
So you had a great job, but you didn't like the job? Do I understand that correctly?
Exactly. It was one of those fast track management jobs, job for life, all that kind of good stuff, beat hundreds of people to get the job. As soon as I started, I thought, I'm in a cubicle. I'm going to be in a cubicle for the rest of my life. It was a multinational company, great money, all that sort of thing. And I stuck it out for 2 years, and then I went back to America again, and I worked for a bank in America, in California, and then I did lots and lots of other things as well. And I traveled through Central America, lots of situations.
It's not a cubicle life.
Yeah, I walked into a civil war in one Central American country just because I didn't know. I was just naive. I had the wrong end of a gun pointed at me more than once.
What does that do to you?
Sorry, well, it made me appreciate life. I am by nature very optimistic.
Mm-hmm. I've noticed that over the past months.
And even when bad things happen, I usually can bounce back. But sometimes bad things happen to good people.
Yeah.
And sometimes good things happen to bad people. And it's just life. And so I was very lucky. My wife, my son is now that age, and he could go traveling, and we're, wanting to encourage him, but we don't want him to get into the scrapes that I got into. I spent a night on the side of a volcano in was it Guatemala, running away from bandits all night who used to prey on tourists, prey on people like me who would be sleeping out because it was an active volcano that people used to go there because it was a cool thing to see.
Yeah.
But then all these crooks, gangs of these crooks used to catch people and steal all their money and take everything.
It's a way of life, yeah.
I remember climbing up a tree and hiding in a tree.
Wow.
And I could hear the clanking of their lanterns, and I could hear them talking and dogs barking. And I thought, I'll go up a tree. And so you learn to think fast when you're traveling, and I think that did me a lot of good as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I listen to your story, it's you, because you were naive, you have been into some sticky situations. Do you regret that?
Mostly no, because I think life is for experiencing. I am now an author, so I'll cover that in a minute. But I write thrillers. I write thrillers under the name of Alex Breck. So Alex Breck wouldn't have happened if certain things hadn't happened in my life, and I wouldn't have had the idea for some of my stories. The first one particularly, if I hadn't been traveling. Yeah. Because I would weave some of the things that happened to me into a story, highly exaggerate them, make them more exciting, more dramatic, more dangerous, whatever. But those experiences gave me the seed, the kernel that would blossom into a story.
Yeah. So what you're saying is actually you use your personal experiences in your thriller writing, right?
Yeah. Wow, up to a point. I mean, I'm now just about to publish my 6th full-length thriller, so I've kind of exhausted all my experiences by this time. It's all just made up now.
I can tell you some stories. No.
Well, exactly. Listening to other people is fantastic for a writer. I mean, any writer who's honest will admit to being a shameless eavesdropper. We're always listening to what that's why I love going on holiday and sitting in a cafe somewhere, watching people go past. I love people watching, but I also like to listen.
In a cafe, perfect.
Fragments of stories, and it's like, oh, you'll never guess what, So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So your experience are weaved into your whole life. When you look back at all the things you've done through your long life, through your 18 years plus experiences, what are the things that stand out for you that you value very dearly and you still use to today?
I think following your instinct. When I haven't followed my instinct, things haven't gone so well. But I don't regret much. I think regret is a waste of time. I've had failed businesses. I came back to Scotland and did various different things, and I lost a lot of money on one particular business, and I went into partnership with somebody, and I had a bad feeling about it before I did it, and I should have listened to my gut instinct. Everybody makes mistakes. I've made many mistakes. Again, there's no point in regretting that. If you learn from mistakes, which I think most people do, life generally gets better. Mm-hmm. I think I've embraced change. Change is a good thing in life. People today tend to get a little bit too scared of change. If they live in a town where there's mass unemployment, that's terrible. But my answer would be to move to another town. But people are very reluctant to do things like that. Yeah. Having been all over the world, it makes me realize the world is really a small place. And
doesn't that make it easier for you to see it that way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even though I have lived on this little island now for 25 years, I'm not against the idea of going somewhere else, and I still like to see other places in the world. But we're not trees. People think sometimes that they are like a tree; they're rooted to the spot. But we're not like trees. We can lift up our roots, and we can go somewhere else where where the sun is brighter or the grass is greener, if we choose to do that.
Yeah, so actually what you're saying is that everything that happened to you in life were also based on your choices.
Yeah, yeah,
Deliberate
pretty much. So yeah, and then that's another thing that people do all the time is they blame everybody else.
yeah.
You know, it's not my fault. It's the economy. It's the government. It's blah
So
blah.
what if
You
it
know.
is the government and these things do impact us? How would you say that people should deal with those kinds of situations?
Well, you can try and vote your way out of a situation. There's a lot of madness going around in the world at the moment. I'm very happy living in Scotland, and I'm pretty happy with the way that my country is being run. I would like it to be independent from the UK. I'm in favour of Scottish independence.
Mm-hmm.
I think being an entrepreneur, you have that knowledge that you can maybe run your own affairs better than somebody who's hundreds and nearly 1,000 miles away
Yeah.
from where I live. So, you can protest, you can go on marches. I've done all of that many times in my life.
So what you're saying is take responsibility over your
Yeah.
own choices, decisions, your own life.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do in this, this blockchain space, for example. We have fairly much taken control of our own lives. We are our own banks. We have custodianship of our own assets,
Yeah.
for good or for bad. We've lost money
Yeah.
and we've made money. But it's pretty much us that's in charge. And I like that, whether it's, the best business model in the world, who knows? But
is that also what you say? Because I heard you say that the entrepreneurial approach, there comes in my Dutch.
it's a lot better than my Dutch.
I can teach you. Yeah, maybe. No, but you said you are an entrepreneur. You have an entrepreneurial approach to life. Does that taking control and taking ownership, is that part of that entrepreneurial approach?
I think so. I think there is an element of control, being your own boss, but there's also a lot of uncertainty too. So there's a lot of risk. Most people don't become entrepreneurs because of that fear of what might go wrong. So things go wrong all the time in the life of an entrepreneur. Every day. I mean, we nearly didn't have this chat today because our internet connection wasn't strong enough.
Yeah, from both sides. So that is
exactly. So it's uncertainty and fear is again are things that I don't pay too much attention to. I'm one of those feel the fear and do it anyway type of people. Sometimes if I'm trying to make my mind up about something, I think, what's the most courageous thing to do? Is this or that? And I do the most courageous one, which is not always the wisest. However, I haven't had that many regrets. At this point in my life, I wouldn't change anything.
No. So looking back at what you have achieved and all the bumps and hurdles you've been through, you're actually pretty happy about how your life has been.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody could want other things and want more, etc. But greed is, greed can kill you. I think I'm pretty happy. I really enjoy my life. I'd love to sell a few more books. I think being an author is probably not the best business model. I would definitely say to you, if you want to be a writer, to do it. Absolutely follow your dream, but don't expect to make a lot of money out of it.
Yeah. So also when it comes to that, you follow your dream always.
Yes, I mean, I turn it's a turning lemons into lemonade situation for me. I lost my business and was pretty much virtually on the homeless list. Went from having a big house to having no house, fancy car, lots of bathrooms. So we even had 2 kitchens in our house, to having a 1-room apartment with nothing really, no Wi-Fi, no TV, and we had the choice of leaving, where we are, and taking my son out of a really lovely country primary school on the island, and moving to one of the cities to get proper jobs, or do something different. And so I thought, well, I'm going to start writing a book. I've always wanted to write a book. I've got all these ideas in my head for, and I've talked about it. I'm going to do it. And so I basically wrote a book in a very short space of time, but it had been in my head probably for 10 years. Mm. And, much of it was because due to my travels and places that I'd been to and people that I'd met, crazy situations. And so I wrote a book, and I'm just going to close my blind for a second, because I think my studio is being so bathed in sunlight. We're not used to it in Scotland.
Well, you sent me the rain, because here it's
I
raining now. So you see those 5 minutes work in both countries.
Sorry about that, guys. So so I wrote a book, and I thought writing a book would be the hard bit, to be honest. I thought that, I was quite pleased with myself having done it. I got it published, and then I waited for all the money to come rolling in. And you can imagine
that was going to be your solution from your bankruptcy.
Yeah. I knew nothing about online. I mean, up until that point in my life, I didn't really go online at all. I was too busy. I wasn't a fan of Facebook, anything like that. I was too busy offline doing real world stuff. So here I was waiting for the money to come rolling in, and nothing happened. And I thought, what am I going to do here? So I learned about online marketing, and that rabbit hole, that awful money grabbing vortex of misery.
Yeah.
For most of us. And so I learned a little bit, and I could market my second book a little bit better. And I also got into affiliate marketing and, ways of doing things with Amazon and all that kind of nonsense. And yeah, it was okay, but I decided that it wasn't really for me, just chasing money all the time. It's like being a hamster on a wheel.
Yeah.
And then I discovered assets, building assets that would give me an income. And that's when everything changed. And it kind of coincided with finding out about the blockchain, more or less at the same time.
Great. So when I listen to you, I have a feeling that when you talk about writing books, that is actually your passion.
Absolutely, very much so.
And as a writer, is it necessary that your books are read, that people read your books?
Well, I suppose if nobody reads my books, it's just a hobby. It just becomes a hobby. Mm-hmm. I have no aspirations to be, James Patterson or, J.K. Rowling, or, I don't want to be like, these people. I don't want to be that famous. It's nice to be recognized as being good at what you're doing. Yeah. I think, without being vain, it's just nice to know that you're doing a good job. And I suppose, book sales are a way of validating the fact that other people like your books. Yeah. From my very small, writing experience, I know that if, people that I know who read my books have liked them, not just my friends, not just my family, not just people that I paid to say that. I get good responses, and I've got some good things to put on the back cover of my books, from real people that liked my books.
Yeah.
But it's a very difficult market to there are books coming out every day, and people quite often will buy books from famous people, even if they're not very good writers. If you're a famous chef or a famous fitness guru, or
just the word of your name is enough for people to buy a book.
Yeah, I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V is a very famous online entrepreneur. He came into America with nothing and built up an online, I think it was a wine-based business originally. Yeah. And he's very much into blockchain and technology and NFTs, as I am. And he offered a free NFT to anybody who bought 12 of his book, which is just about to come out. And he by the time everybody found out about this, he had 1 million books on order, and the company's publishing company were like, where the heck are we going to get 1 million books from? They've had to delay the launch. It's going to be next month. it's going to be launched, but they've got a print run on day one of 1 million books. So, because people are excited about this NFT idea, and he released an NFT a few months before that, which has now become worth a lot of money. And so people are thinking, hang on a minute, I only have to buy 12 books. That's going to cost me $600. And I get a Gary Vaynerchuk NFT, which might end up being worth $6,000. So people have jumped upon this, and it just shows you what you can do, in the right. So,
well, and that's why I'm asking. As a writer, I'm not aspiring to write a book, but when you are writing a book, I think I would expect it to be nice that people read it. But
yeah.
when I hear that story about Gary Vee, I'm curious, because if you have 12 books, you can only read one, and all 12 have the same.
I mean, people will just give them away, I suppose, to friends and family. But
how many books would be really read then? Because
I know,
yes, it sells. So I'm curious about when you're writing a book. And of course, you write thrillers, which is quite a specific genre that is not applicable for everyone. I would love to read a book, but I'm not very much into thrillers.
No, mine are kind of quirky, because I have hopefully a quirky outlook on life, and it's a bit of a sense of humor. So it's black humor, it's dark comedy, but they can be quite gruesome in times, quite violent. One of my books, there's a forest at the foot of Mount Fuji near Tokyo, and Japan's a place that I'm just fascinated by. It's just crazy place. And there's this forest where people used to go to not come back again. They go there deliberately, and it's quite famous now. But it's also the woods are so dense. The magnetic forces in these woods are such that phones don't work. Nothing really works. So if you go there, you can really get away from it all, and people don't come back often. So I thought, what a great place to have as a finale of a book. So I have got this, pretty gruesome finale in the book. And I love forests. I'm surrounded by trees where I live, and I love walking in the woods. But somebody said to me after reading this book, they said, yeah, great book, loved it. Great. But I don't think I can ever go into a forest ever again. And I found myself in a forest not long after that, that I didn't know, and it was dark, and I was petrified. So I've scared myself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that is funny. So actually writing a book can also scare yourself, because you know the story, the background, the whole coming about of the book, and still it does something to you. I like that, actually. Yeah.
The other good thing about I like about writing books is you can right the wrongs of society to a certain extent. If something annoys you in real life, sometimes you can't do much about it, but you can put it into a book, and you can change the outcome. You can make happy endings if you want a happy ending. You can make people get what they've got coming to them. If you know what I mean. I like authors that take a pop at governments, and I like to just give a little bit of a sometimes to governments, or stupid things that governments do to us, or just some of the stupid things that we do as a species. So yeah, I quite like to do that, and it's very satisfying. People say don't annoy an author, or you'll end up as a dead body. So I'm quite happy to put your name on a list if you annoy me. Not that I would do that for you, obviously, but and it's amazing what people will do. People ask me if they can be a character. People will say, I'd love to be in your next book. Can I be a brothel keeper, or can I be a can I be a secret agent, or can I be and these people could be lawyers or doctors or
that's
anything.
Amazing. Yeah, so it does it that's funny, because I see books as this well, separated thing from real life, but actually what I learn now is that it is very much entwined with life.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's hard to keep coming up with fresh ideas all the time. I get a lot of my ideas just from real life, from reading a newspaper or seeing an article online, and then maybe changing it around to fit what I want. And you know, the people in my stories are not real people, you know, but there might be a little bit of Willemijn, there might be a little bit of somebody else, and a little bit of somebody else.
Yeah.
And then all three of those characters will look like somebody else, a fourth person.
Yeah.
So it's all it's all mixed up. But you know, it's something that authors get asked all the time. You know, is this you in this book, or is this who's that bad person? You know, is that someone you've met? I'm like, no, it's not anybody. No. It's an amalgamation.
How do you do that mentally? How do you stay sane? Because that sounds quite.
Who says we're sane?
I think that's a good question. Well, okay, gotcha. Yeah. So what I would like to know, when it comes to feeling a certain age and being a certain age, what has helped you in the whole blockchain journey, your experiences with your 18 plus experience years in life, or maybe 21?
I think just putting one foot forward, put one foot in front of the other. Sometimes it's really overwhelming, you know, in the blockchain space, learning this new thing, decentralized finance, all of that kind of thing, you know, is new and can be overwhelming and scary. Yeah. But then life can be like that. And what I found is just keep putting one foot in front of the other. We were talking earlier today about sat nav in an earlier meeting, one of our colleagues, and you know, if you think about life as a sat nav, you're wanting to get from here to there, but you only need to know where to turn next. Yeah. You don't need to know 3 hours down the road where to turn, because you'll have forgotten it. If I was to tell you where to turn in 3 hours time, you'll have forgotten by the time you get there. You just need to know, where do I turn next? And so I try and think of, you know, life as a sat nav game or something like that. As long as I know where to go next, as long as I can help you to go somewhere next, then we're both okay. And
yeah, so it's actually navigating through the whole space in that sense.
The secret is not to get stuck, and the secret is not to get lost. So, you know, I'm a coach now as well as are you, and I'm very humbled and honored to be a colleague of yours, and we work together and have some great fun. Yeah. Now, we could position ourselves as being experts if we wanted to, you know, and to a certain extent we have knowledge and experience that we can give to other people. But I don't like to call myself an expert. I just like to think that I can tell somebody where to turn next, which road to go down. That's all they need to know. And then as long as you can keep doing that, and they will get to their destination. And if they follow our guidance, and if I follow my own guidance in my own life, hopefully I will get to where I want to go more quickly than if I'm just lost and you know, pity me all the time. So I like to be self-reliant, and also just to keep going, you know.
So what do you do when you hit a dead end, I think you call it?
Well, if I hit a dead end, sometimes I'll bang my head against the desk just like anybody else. I'll swear creatively, and sometimes I'll just go out for a walk, you know, in the fresh air. And sometimes the answer is just to and walk away,
turn around,
do something else, and then come back to it. But things are rarely as bad as they seem, and obstacles are rarely as insurmountable as we think they're going to be. Yeah. I've often thought that. I mean, I set up a business which, you know, was worth millions of pounds eventually, with £10 in my back pocket. I had no money at all. It was just, I had an idea. and everybody said, don't do it, it won't work. But I just kept plodding on, and eventually it got going, and ultimately it was a disaster and I lost everything. But we had a lot of many years of success, and so it's just a case of keeping going. So many people will just give up with
so
anything.
never stop when the going gets tough. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. There's a phrase we have in Scotland: aye and no. If somebody asks you a question, you go aye and no, which is absolutely no use because it doesn't help you at all. But I would say yes and no. I mean, there's no point in continually banging your head against a brick wall if you're not getting anywhere, and there's no glimmer of inspiration. Just like you shouldn't keep making the same mistakes over and over. That famous Einstein quote that people misquote all the time. It's not about doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It's about making the same mistakes again and again and expecting a different result. So yeah, if something's really not working, then you have to change. But people usually give up long before then. They give up when if they just kept going a little bit longer, success was just around the corner, the answer was just around the corner. And we find answers in different places. Some people will get divine inspiration. I get my divine inspiration from going for a walk or a bike ride, and it just comes to me. It's like, oh, it can be something.
Is it about putting your mind to something else, and then all of a sudden there's room for the solution that's actually always been there?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, we are very creative species. The human race. Our mind. There are so many, interlocking and connections. And our brains can take different ways. If we have a bump in the head and get brain damage in one, our brains will divert around that damage area, and they will make new neural connections and keep going. And it's a bit like that. Sometimes you think, oh, I'm never going to understand this, or I'll never be able to do this. And then it's sometimes when you're not actively thinking about it. I suppose you could say meditating. I'm a huge fan of moving meditation. I'm not a big fan of sitting still, and doing the guru thing with my legs crossed. I can't do that. I just can't sit still long enough to do it.
Yeah.
But if I go out on my bike and cycle 100 miles, that to me is meditating, because I can just think about whatever, and I'm actually quite relaxed, even though I'm physically doing something.
But I think that is what meditation is about, right? Is to clear your mind of all the chatter that is going on. And if that is for you in moving, I think meditation is often mistaken in something that needs to be fixed, set on a rock and be zen, which, I've tried that. I fell off the rock. I'm frustrated. So yes, but I love it. What you say is that when you go and have a bike ride or a walk in the forest, that is your kind of meditation.
Yeah.
And what I see with what you just told me about your book is that you wrote your first book and nobody bought it. So you have to try and find a solution. And you could have said at that point, oh, nobody wants my book. Now I'm lost. And depends on the circumstances, and instead you found a way to market it and sell.
And I think it's also just that, even when bad things happen, sometimes everything happens for a reason up to a point, and life. I wouldn't have become an author if my business hadn't collapsed.
No.
But it gave me the time to do that. It gave me time to spend with my family. So I've got a much stronger relationship with my son, who's now, left home, but he and I got to spend more time together. I ran marathons. I did lots of things that I wouldn't have had time to do. I, became a black belt in karate. I did lots of crazy things like that I wouldn't have been able to do if I was still working 100 hours a week in my business.
Yeah. So actually what you're saying is also, when these things happen to you or because of the circumstances, keep an eye on the things that do work. and instead
Yes.
of just focusing on the bad things that happen, but also, like you say, you had more time, you were able to write your book because of the circumstances.
Yeah. And, you know, I've been working from home now for a long time, you know, long before COVID. And so, you know, I couldn't do that if it had, you know, if I was doing a conventional business. So I love all of that. And, you know, all this blockchain life wouldn't have happened either.
Yeah.
So, you know, almost all of the good things in my life came about because I lost a business.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I love where I live. You know, I don't have a 5-bedroomed house anymore. I love, we actually love the house we live in now more than our other house.
Yeah.
It's looking out onto the ocean, you know, I mean, we didn't have that before. And, you know, so yeah, things happen for a reason, but you just have to
Absolutely.
make the best of it at the same time.
But always, even, you know, I love it what you said in the beginning is you had, what did you say again about your job then? Is you had the good job?
Yes, it was a good job. It was a big business, and I was making lots of money. Well, I thought I was making lots of money, but the bank went, and
No, but I, you know, it is what I wanted to say is when you just focus on the outside, like you have people tell you that you have a good job, but you're not enjoying life. How good is your job then?
exactly. And I see that all the time, you know, and that's one of the things I love about doing this. You know, people come to us for coaching, and we can help them escape that 9 to 5 rat race if they're not enjoying it. And most people who come to us are in that situation. They want a plan B. They want an exit plan from working for 30 years. And so we can give them that. You know, we're lucky that we found that on our own.
Yeah.
It would have been a lot easier if somebody had been around to help us to do that. But yeah, you know, it's just making the best of things. People used to say to me when I had my business, "You're so lucky. You're so lucky having this $1 million business with all these people and winning these awards and things like that. It must be wonderful. You're so lucky." And I'd be thinking, do you know, if you could see the size of my overdraft,
And the
if you
responsibility.
knew how much in debt I am, and if you knew how many hours I've worked this week, you wouldn't call me lucky. You'd be putting your arm around me saying, "Oh, come on, I'll buy you a drink."
Yeah.
You know, but it's just people's perception. You know, I just, you know, I just went for it, and it happened. And I would say that's what we should do in life. Go for it. Try your best. If it feels good, do it. Don't be frightened by what other people say, and trust your instincts. It won't always work. You know, my experience, it didn't always work, but most of the time it does work. And your life will become rich in other ways as well as financial. Because let's face it, money is only attractive until you've got it. Money doesn't really do anything for me. I remember I had a really nice car, a Jaguar sports car.
Nice.
I'd always wanted one, you know, and it was really nice. It was lovely. But, you know, I hardly drove it because I was working all the time. I drove to work in the morning and I drove home at night.
Yeah.
That was it. And, you know, even a nice car, it's just a car. It's just a car.
It is.
And I would get into it and I'd think, yep, it's a nice car, but, you know, it's just a car.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that possessions don't mean anything to me either. Possessions are not important. Yes, it's nice to have a house that's comfortable and all that sort of thing, and to live somewhere that you enjoy, and to have clothes and food and all that kind of stuff, the basics. But apart from that, it's experiences and feelings that are
And the love
important.
for the people around you.
Yeah, love for people around you, love for life. And you know, I am immeasurably richer in those terms now than I was 20 years ago.
When you earned a lot of money and had the so-called good life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you're saying there because I see that a lot around me. And when you take chances, people say you're lucky, but they don't know the chances you took to be that lucky, and also not the responsibilities you're taking. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of cliches, obviously, about comfort zones and your life begins outside the comfort zone. But cliches tend to be cliches because they are true.
Yeah.
You know, a cliche is just is a truism. If you know that expression, a truism is something that is true. You know, it's a commonly said thing because it happens a lot because it's true.
And over
It's real.
not just yesterday, but over the centuries, I think.
Yes, exactly. Old wives' tales, if you know that expression,
Yeah.
old wives' tales tend to be fairly practical and based in reality. They only become cliches when we overuse them, but that doesn't mean that they're not true.
Absolutely, yeah,
And
yeah.
so we tend to live in little cocoons now, you know, and you know, in my colleagues in their cubicles in the multinational in London will still be in their cubicles in their multinational in London.
Yeah.
And we tend to, you know, we get into our little cars and we drive to our office and we sit in the office, we work all day, we get in the car, we drive home and we sit and watch TV all night. And we live our lives in these cocoons of safety and comfort. But are we really living half of the
That's
time?
a good question. When when did I think I got rid of my TV in 1998 or so. And I still to today, people ask me, how can you live without a TV? I think, and I'm like, you know how peaceful it is to have no TV in the house and not being able to put it on and zap all night. And at 2 o'clock realize that you zapped away your night and that time is gone.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I do still have a television. I quite like to watch, you know, nature programs and stuff like that. I still enjoy TV, but I don't watch all the soap operas. And it's a controlling influence as well. TV, you know, it's controlling the way we think.
Yeah.
And I don't like that particularly. So yeah, most people watch far too much TV.
I think so. Yeah, but you know, I don't want to judge for other people. If it makes you happy, who am I to tell you not to do it? But on the other hand, do you have still dreams? Do you have still dreams, Robin?
Yes, I mean, I want to help more people with blockchain. I want to. I'm not. I don't mean to be political when I say this, but I want to help bridge this wealth gap between the super rich and the poor, which is getting worse and worse and worse all over the world, not just in Europe, but in America. You know, there are some super rich people who are becoming richer and richer and richer. And when we talk about blockchain and making a lot of money, we're not talking about being billionaires. We're just talking about having more income and safety and security for families, more choice in our lives. But there are millions of people who don't even have a bank account nowadays.
Yeah.
And so
half of the world population don't have a bank account. Can you imagine?
yeah, I mean, the world is very, you know, the proportion of wealth in the world is controlled by a very small amount of people, which is not healthy. Even if these people were the nicest, you know, most clever people in the world, which they're not, it's not good. And you know, a long time ago, richer, wealthier people used to be more generous with their money. They used to, you know, philanthropy was a thing. Philanthropy is not really so much of a thing nowadays. So I want to help bridge that gap, even to a slight extent. And one of the expressions that I love about what we do is, and it's one of my mantras, is to be the tide that lifts all boats. Okay, so I want to help as many people as possible. I'm not saying I want to turn them into millionaires, but if I can let them sleep at night without worrying about tomorrow because they have no funds, no income, no food, that's what I'd like to do. Now, admittedly, we don't have many people come to us in our, you know, blockchain academy that we work for who have no money to put food on the table, but we do have people in tears sometimes, you know, who are worried about money for tomorrow or next week. I mean, it's true. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. So you know, it's very satisfying to help people like that.
Well, I have to admit, I was in that space that I didn't know how to put food on the table at a certain point, and the crypto world or the crypto space has helped me out big time for solidating. I think you can say that my purchasing power. what
Yeah.
we're talking about actually is that it is not about becoming a millionaire or a billionaire, but it is about the power to live the life you want and how you want it.
Yeah, and it's so satisfying. And I suppose to a certain extent, we're also pointing out that there's wrong in the system that we live under. The banks don't do us any favors. Banks are, if you're talking about, cartels, I write about drug cartels in South America and things like that. I mean, the biggest cartel in the world is the banking cartel. Yeah. And they are the biggest crooks on the face of the earth. Bankers, insurance people, lawyers.
And they are legalized, which is actually the biggest crime.
Yeah, I mean, the system is set up, so that the house always wins. And so we are the disruptors of that. We are the people that can make a slight change, but it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. You just need a few people, and then it can grow and grow and grow. And so that's why banks are terrified of the crypto business and blockchain. They're terrified because we can do what they're doing in a fairer way and help more people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is a really beautiful thing to end with.
Yeah, thank you.
That we can make the world a bit fairer. I love that.
Yeah, well, every day, just a little bit.
Yes, let's do it. Thank you so much, Robin. I really enjoyed it. And
you're welcome. Nice talking to you. Always.
I'm not sure if I want to be a character in your book.
You can let me know. I'll be looking for.
I do want to share my stories with you so that you can be inspired. So that
I love that. I love hearing stories, and I write them down in little notes, and one day.
Great.
Well, especially traveling stories. Especially traveling stories. I know
I've got loads of those.
My next book is going to be set in Tasmania, and I'm going to be looking for lots of stories for around about the Indian Ocean. So that's absolutely perfect. You can hit me with some stories, all right?
I will. Thank you so much.
Great.
And see you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.